Well, what would you say if I said that I could bring them back?
I guess I'd say I never thought of that.
Well, alright, hold tight, you might want to stand back, because one small John is coming intact.
St. John forward, spitting out some more words, fully intact, jacked, ready to rap and attack. Small John on your lawn, living like a gnome, hit you with my lyrics like a bullet to your dome.
Tonight when he comes up here, he's either gonna kill or he's gonna suck. But there's no in between for Mr. John Forward.
Oh, well, I didn't know any of that.
Well, that's what I've been trying to say.
Welcome to St. John Forward Radio. It's Monday night at 9 o'clock, live here on local FM at the UNB campus. Usually save the plugs for the end, but exciting announcement today. I'll get it right out the gate before I forget about it at the end. The Hard Times movie, Reprobate Road, I've been talking about on and off for a while. Had several other cast members on the show. It's almost done shooting, but the premiere is going to be on Friday, November 29th at the BMO Theater. You can find that on Facebook. I'll put the link in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast. So yeah, a bunch of people that have been on this show are in it, and it should be a good time. I've got one more scene to do next weekend with Bernard Robichaud from Trailer Park Boys, and then that will be the end of it, I think. And they've set themselves a deadline, so we'll see if they can hit it. I'm sure they will. Yeah, a bunch of us got together this weekend for a sort of rap party. They had a big group scene to shoot. Had a potluck, nice to have everybody together, have some food, have some drinks, trick several people into looking at a pantsless picture I found of myself from when I was 2 or 3 years old. Always a good time. This past week, I went up to Moncton to see the band Red Fang on Thursday night with some friends. It was part of the Mud City Festival that they had going on. There were some other good shows that I never got a chance to go see. Kind of a last-minute decision months ago. Saw it come up, hit interested on Facebook, which usually means probably not, but remind me later, Facebook. And got a reminder the day before, but I'm an old man who doesn't like to be out past my bedtime on a work night. But I looked at the guest list and saw some friends of mine were going. It's easier to justify late night if somebody else is doing the driving, so made a plan, bummed a ride, bought my tickets, and headed up to Moncton after work on Thursday. And just happened the concert venue was close to a comedy venue up there, and I'd sent a message to the guy running the show up there who had not answered me, so I thought I'd do a quick pop in. Rang the bell. Hey, what's up? Oh, here for the Red Fang show. He didn't answer my Facebook message, so I thought I'd pop in, and he was kind of, I thought it was just, I missed it, but it was just kind of weird about it, and I don't know. I'd sent some messages about doing my Cigarettes and Cool Ranch show that I did for the Fringe Festival up at this other place. So we'd talked about it a few times before. I'd first brought it up back in like January, I think, when I was setting up another show. But last message that I got back was saying the week after the Fringe Festival's booked right up, but he'd look into it, and then no answer back for another 2 months. Sent another message back, which did not get answered. Didn't even get looked at, as far as I could tell, on the Facebook. And I don't know. He was being all kind of weird about it all of a sudden. I'm not sure how to market it, and asking me like how many people came out to see it in St. John. 60. Yeah, in a city that knows you. Like, well, it was part of a theater festival. But anyway, it was just a weird change of gears. So anyway, I told him I have the show on video, so I can send it to him. It's not some weird one-man show, which I think was the main concern. It's just a stand-up show. But anyway, video's still being worked on, but I'll pass it along whenever that's ready. Also said I was up for whatever. I don't need to you don't need to sign me up for a full hour. I'm perfectly happy to do a quick opening spot or on one of those other shows with a bunch of local people, and got kind of weird and defensive about that, and about he doesn't like bothering people to do spots, so he just books the people who ask. And I showed up there and I asked, so I guess that's good enough. But I don't know. I've asked before and he just doesn't answer on Facebook, so that's weird. Also went off on a weird tangent about only having so many seats and it's hard to pay people much, which I was not talking money at all. I'm not really sure where that came from. Best I can figure is on the radio show, probably like at least a year ago, I think I had mentioned somebody was posting on Facebook some complaints about this place, and I lent some tentative degree of support to it. I found out later I didn't quite have all of the information, but there was some complaints about this place paying, and I still roll my eyes a little bit when somebody that's running an admittedly small, but it's always been a packed house. I've been there every time of people paying cover and for drinks, and I've never had a problem myself, but I've talked to other people who've gone up there from out of town and gotten paid less than what I can manage, scrounge out of a donation bucket at a No Jokes Barred show when they drove from out of town. So anyway, I was not getting into it, so that's my best guess as to why he was maybe being weird about the whole thing. And because I've got a decent job, and I'm not in this for the money. I've personally gotten paid fairly when I've done the show, but like I said, I've heard other people who have had mixed experiences. But anyway, this whole thing was frustrating, but it's a fun enough place to do comedy that I'll swallow my pride and jump through the hoops. I'll send a video. That's what the video's for. That's fine. Last show I put together at this place sold out and went very well, and I've done pretty great last 3 times in a row that I've been there. Some of the best audience responses I dare say that I've ever gotten. So it's a little demoralizing to still have to beg and plead for spots after I feel like I've already proved myself. But that's being a comedian in New Brunswick. Doesn't matter how hard you work or how good you think you are. Uphill battle to get that stage time other than at an open mic, but whatever. And some people don't need to do well or work hard, and they get the opportunities. It's best not to think about it. This is a show I want to do, so I'll jump through the hoops. But anyway, Red Fang show was great. My grizzled 36-year-old body has a tough time standing up and watching a show for several hours, but I survived. Also, not a tall man, so visibility is always a problem at shows. I love nothing more than a good balcony where I can sit down and see everything, but that wasn't an option here. Not so much into the mosh pits anymore. Used to be. If I wore contacts, I'd maybe give it a go, but I don't want to break my glasses. If my dear wife May isn't there to hold them for me, I'm probably not going to get in there. Figured, instead of being, I'll stand behind some girls that are shorter than me. That way, I don't have my view blocked. I can see over their head, and they're probably not going to rough me up. Maybe I get a bonus Joe Biden style hair sniff out of the deal, but I still try to keep a comfortable air pocket between people at the shows. Like, my genitals don't need to be rubbing on their bottoms, but anyway, that small gap that I leave opens it up for a bunch of annoying guys to shove themselves right in there. There was lots of room elsewhere, but they love to just stand directly in front of me. I'm not sure. Anywhere but a rock show, if you just walked up and stood directly in front of somebody, like, so that their shoulder blades are rubbing on your chest, it would be kind of awkward. But for some reason at a concert, that's acceptable. It's annoying, and their head is directly in front of mine, so I'm looking at the back of their sweaty heads, And I don't know. There's also some large, very sweaty man that kept trying to. I think he was trying to sidle up to the girls that I was standing by. He's a large man. He's not taller than me. Just has a much larger circumference. Big fat guy. Sweating profusely. Drenched t-shirt keeps rubbing on me, and it's gross. And he keeps like typing things out on his phone and showing it to these girls. I think this was his communication tool because it was too loud to have to talk. I was trying really hard to look over his shoulder and see what was on the screen, so I couldn't see it though. My best guess, it seemed to be one message was, "Hey, can I get you girls some drinks?" And they agreed, and he came back with some. And then I think the next message was some sort of, "Can I get your number, or do you want to go out sometime?" Which they reacted poorly to. We're not interested. I enjoyed the rejection, so almost made up for the back sweat being rubbed on me constantly. But I found it an interesting choice that after getting rejected, he still decided to just hand them his double-fisted beers so that he could go and mosh for 30 seconds before he ran out of breath and came back, I guess. I don't know. He bought them drinks, so you might as well get something out of the deal. But anyway, that was the show. And now, this show, St. John Forward Radio. Brand new guest, Brad Davis. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
All right. Well, we'll talk some more after we take a quick musical break. I'm going to play a Red Fang song called Cut It Short, and then we'll be back to talk to Brad.
Go
back on St. John Forward Radio. That wasn't a graceful fade out. I just stopped it. What is up? And I hit pause in the middle of the song. Very professional business, as always, here on St. John Forward Radio. Here with first-time guest Brad Davis.
Thank you for having me on. I still have faith in you.
My pleasure. If somebody's going to tell me that they're a fan of the show, it just makes my heart swell, and so I got to have them on.
Right.
So how long have you been doing comedy? It's been a couple months.
I think we're just over a month now. It was late August, so a month and a couple weeks.
All right.
Got, I think 6 or 7 spots in that first month, so
yeah,
it was
that's
kind of
pretty
booming.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what, how'd you find your way into our little comedy scene?
Well, you kind of make people laugh at a party or something, and people start telling you should try comedy. That doesn't always necessarily translate to the stage. I mean, capturing lightning in a bottle can be difficult, but
yeah, it's a different thing.
Yeah, enough people mention it, and then you go to a couple of the local shows to support the scene, and at the end of every show, usually the host will say, if you're interested, come try, and with some peer pressure.
Yeah. So you came out and saw a couple of shows before you went out? Yeah,
I went to a few of the Yuck Yucks amateur nights when that was up and running, and then 2 or 3 of the Five and Dime comedy nights.
Well, that's pretty good. Honestly, I think most of the people that start out, I don't know how they find out about it, but the first time that they go to a comedy show is when they're on stage. But I think it's good to kind of feel out what you're getting into,
right?
Because it's not necessarily a competition. It's not like oh, am I good enough to do this? Because nobody is until you work at it,
right?
But I think it's good. I used to take more of a harder line on the No Jokes Barred shows, where I wouldn't let people do it unless they come and watch at least one. I've had to soften my position just because I want to book the show, and there isn't as many people doing it anymore, so I can't afford to be as picky. Yeah,
everyone was very welcoming, coming into the scene. I mean, they're kind of curious how you're going to do on your first show, and thankfully I got invited back and onto some of the McGill shows, and I've done a couple in Fredericton, so made some good connections. And as you said, it's not a competition. Like, everyone wants to be part of a really good booming scene, so when you're on a good show, it helps you as well.
Yeah, well, and that's good for everybody. There's kind of 2 ways to think about it. Like, some people are, and it doesn't really come out much, but there's a bit of a kind of survival of the fittest and that kind of thing. But I don't know. I think it's good to have more people in, and if somebody does good at all, I think it's good to encourage them to come back, because which I haven't always been the best of. I think I made a point of reaching out to you after I saw your set at the Five and Dime. I think that was your first one. Because you did a good job. It was a solid set, and I'm not the best person at giving positive feedback, but over the past few months, I've been whining and moaning on the radio show occasionally about how nobody's, a lot of people have quit or moved away, and it's harder to book shows, and even the people that are still around have gotten a bit lazy, and they aren't as keen to do shows. So I figured, if I see somebody that's doing well, then maybe I could make the tiny bit of effort to say, hey, good job. If you want to do my show, let me know.
Yeah, I've already, of course, I've seen people in St. John who try to get spots frequently. I've seen their sets a few times, and now I'm always curious to see a name that I haven't seen before, how they're going to do. So even though I'm the new guy, sometimes people to me seem kind of like new if I haven't seen them before. And that's exciting.
There is it has picked up since I'm just going to go ahead and take credit. All of my complaining has, but I think there's been a lot more new blood lately coming in. Like you've been doing some shows over the past month, and I probably should name other names because I'll forget somebody, but like Taylor Lakeport, I think she's been doing it a bit, but she's been making more of an effort to come down to St. John. And
my first 3 shows, I think she was on all of them. So
Yeah, and Mike Rogers started. I think that was earlier in the summer, but he's been getting up and doing spots. He went up and did that double night show in Fredericton a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I've heard quite a bit about that. That it went really well.
Yeah. I'd like to get out and give that a go. It was my wife's birthday that night, so didn't want to bail out and go talk into a microphone. And anyway, but there's been more people that have come up. There's still kind of the same people I was complaining about that will do like 3 sets per year and then expect to get booked on big things,
whatever they want.
But no, I think it's I don't know. Some people are nobody should do comedy and get out of it. But I don't know. I just think the more people that are trying it, especially if they're good, you know what? If somebody's terrible, then they should also do it because they might someday not be terrible. Right. But
get better. You find your voice and
yeah. Like I think the last No Jokes Barred show that you were on, I think. There wasn't many of my usual people. There, a lot of the people on there had done it before, but it wasn't. I think John Scove Nielsen is the only person that was on that whole set. That whole lineup that isn't kind of a regular, like every other month type person. And it used to be part of when I was complaining, because it used to be like I'd make a post on the stand-up group, like who wants a spot, and within like a couple hours I've already got twice as many people as I can handle.
That group is very active.
But it had slowed down for a while, and I was posting shows. It might have just been a summer lull, but it was hard enough to get just like 7 people to round out the show. So I posted for the October show last week, and already I've got more people than I can fit on. So I've got to make some decisions. The priority goes on based on who hasn't been on for the longest. So new people definitely get first crack at it. I don't like to say no to anybody, but I'd rather have too many people asking than not enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I was on almost everything in St. John in September, so the city might be a little tired on me for this month, but if anything opens up, feel free to send me a message.
Yeah, well, the thing about like St. John's small, so there is some overlap, but I think all of the different venues and all the different, even the people that go see like Sunday After Dark and No Jokes Barred, they're both at McGill's, but I think it's a different crowd of people usually, so you can kind of get away with repeating yourself, which is necessary. You have to kind of work on your stuff, but it's hard to do if you're doing the same set for the same people over and over and over again.
Yeah, we don't have the luxury of those 10 clubs to jump around and hone the material.
Yeah, well, and that's I think the benefit of that that show where they had the back-to-back shows in Fredericton a few weeks ago.
Guaranteed
most people
a turnover.
Most people don't get a chance to do more than one show in a night. I've rarely done it. I've done it a couple of times, but that's a nice treat. And for different people. So you have to kind of find the balance between, if you were in a bigger city, there's some people that have been honing the same 5-minute set for like years probably, and just over and over and over again, and particularly somebody who's still in kind of the mode, and again, that's not really an option for us, really. But the late night thing where somebody's trying to hone like their perfect 7
tight
minutes
5
for whatever. But it's best to not even think about that option when you're in the middle of nowhere.
No, you better keep writing here.
Yeah. So there's kind of a balance between coming up with new stuff to keep, because a lot of the same people are coming out to see you, but you don't want to do something like once and then just throw it away.
Yeah, I think most of my friends have been out to see me once, so I might not be pulling out the crowds anymore like I was my first couple shows. Yeah, and that always happens. The first few times I've made jokes about it. The new comedians bring out their shows as they haven't alienated all of their friends yet. Right. But yeah, that's generally the trajectory. Everybody's very super supportive when you first start doing it, and then they get tired of it real quick, and it drops off. But that's another reason why it's good to
have an infusion of fresh blood into the scene. It gets more people to come out and see the shows, and that they come out and they have to watch the rest of us too.
Right. Yes. I mean, the idea of the art is to do it for strangers, really. So seeing those strangers show up in the crowd, or people who occasionally wander in off the street and find your shows.
Yeah, and it is a different thing to do it when you've got the audience is like a third or people that you brought. You're probably going to do better than if it's going up cold for strangers. But so how do you? It's only been a month in, but like how are you feeling about your arc? Have you noticed like a difference between set 1 and whatever the most recent one is?
Not really, because I've tried so much different material at all the shows. There were a couple that I got on short notice where I was mostly going over material that I'd done and had watched the video of. So those were a little more cleaned up, but really I'm still taking lots of video and trying to figure out really what my voice is with comedy. I mean, it takes years to, I think, figure out exactly your identity, but you can decide where you are on the Carrot Top to Stephen Wright scale pretty quickly. And just you just get used to when I talk about this kind of thing or in this kind of way, it seems to do well, and when I do this, people don't like it, and I want to get down, and really it's just and it varies from audience to audience. That's why you have to repeat stuff to some extent, because I've had stuff that I thought was like my go-to crowd pleaser, and 99% of the time it does great, and then I just do one show and break it out and they hate it. So it can always happen, and sometimes I don't know, if you get too self-conscious about it and you do try something for the first time and it bombs, then you're a little bit afraid to, because it sucks when you bomb. But I don't know, sometimes you gotta find the nerve to try that stuff again, or even just rearrange the pieces. But I think it's great that you're taking the video and kind of reviewing back the tapes. My girlfriend's been at most of the shows and filmed me, and that's been really helpful, to kind of have your spotter there, almost like a spotter in the gym, taking care of the video. And have you been posting the videos? No, I haven't posted them yet. I would advise against it, because even no matter how good it is, in a year you'll watch it and you'll cringe. But also, I find some people are lazy, and that, not like audience wise, and especially like friends of comedians. I know when I started doing it, it was like, post a video. I'm never going to leave my house to come see you, but post a video. And I don't really want to encourage that. I might I was thinking of doing maybe a 45-second one. I have a couple quick under 1 minute bits that I just kind of use to grab people's attention. So maybe putting one of those up would act more as an advertisement than giving away material or just exposing some of the cringe to the wide world.
And even a little bit of a tease like that isn't too bad, because that's only a small piece. If you put up like a full set, then anybody that sees it is going to come to see you. They kind of already know it, and without the surprise, it doesn't really land as well. And at this point, none of the bits that you're posting are done, so it's a little premature to kill it by having it out there, because somebody, you might, when you're working on stuff, I don't know what your process has been, I guess, based on your review, but like sometimes when I'm working on something, it's just a matter of just swapping this sentence around and just changing the order, which, like, at a glance, if you heard the same set twice, you wouldn't really notice the difference, but I notice a difference in how it lands compared, and sometimes just a little tweak like that can be all the difference in the world. But to somebody who's already seen the previous draft, it's not gonna it's harder to gauge the reaction on that.
Well, I'm still at this very broad level where most of the material I've done so far has been kind of off the cuff weird stuff, like I've talked about astronauts and different foods I like and these weird things, but I haven't really tried any personal stories. I think I tried one, might have been on No Jokes Barred, but I have a few more that I want to try and see if I can go in that direction, as well as the really imaginative
Yeah.
you know, riff on whatever stuff that I've been doing.
Yeah, well, no, it's good just to have a lot of tools in the toolbox, and, you know, some audiences like some certain stuff better, and it might turn out down the road that you pick a lane and do one or the other, but it's good to be versatile. I'd like to be able to do more silly kind of absurdist type stuff, but I'm not as good at thinking of the ideas. I can kind of, if I'm riffing a little bit, which it's hard to get the opportunity to do that.
I've noticed that already
on shows, but mostly it's just I will tell the story about myself, and most of the time it actually happened. I'm just plagiarizing my own life because I don't have an imagination.
Right.
But I like doing goofy stuff, and like if I'm hanging out with friends, and it's the same thing, like being the funny guy at the party. Some of the material that I have is something where I'm just talking to a friend and they'll laugh, and then I'm like, oh, wait a minute,
right,
that's a bit, and I'll go hide in a corner and write it in my phone.
Yeah, for me it seems if I take that moment out of that situation, it's not gonna work, and that doesn't necessarily mean I forget about it. I have a lot of those moments and ideas recorded that I might work on down the road, but I haven't really figured out how to do that yet. I mean, sometimes you have to catch the audience up so much that you don't leave enough time for jokes in your, around here, typically 7 to 10 minute set.
And that's definitely part of it. That's something that I've had to work on. I started out like telling longer stories, which is kind of the backwards way that most people do it, and I've gotten better over the years of putting jokes in the story, but especially early on when I'm doing something new, I'm just this is what happened, and I'll try to shoehorn some jokes in.
You don't want to be the you had to be there guy.
So you have to kind of figure out what's necessary, and there's also, if you're telling a story or something, there's also like, this part happened, but they don't need to hear about it. And watching the videos back is a good way to see that. Like I've gone through my sets, and even the audio's better than nothing. The video's an extra level to it, but I've gone through with like the written out version of it and made a little asterisk whenever I've gotten a laugh, and if I kind of look at it and there's a big chunk with no laughs, then I've got to decide whether I got to cut something out or put something in, or maybe it's important enough and the next laugh is big enough to justify the lull.
But then if that next big laugh doesn't land one night, then you suddenly have a full minute or 2 minutes of your set that's
definitely
wasted.
And that's the hardest stuff for me to remember, is the joke parts, because those are kind of the least important part of the story, but they're also the most important part of doing a set on a comedy show. So it's it's the balance there, and it's easier to get a laugh from your friends who kind of know your entire life story and don't need to be caught up on that, and they get a feel for your personality. But the more in part of that is finding your voice. There's a certain way that you present things that's not always something that you consciously think of, but it's a bit of a shortcut to, okay, this is the person that I am, and now I'm going to say this. So you find little tricks like that, and sometimes watching the videos back is a good way to catch that, and sometimes you'll say stuff off the cuff that you weren't planning on, that you would have forgotten immediately after you got off the stage if you didn't have the record of it.
Well, it's weird. I mean, I'm not trying to be squeaky clean or anything, but I haven't tackled any social or political issues really on stage.
That's a tough needle to thread.
Yeah, it can be. Just lost my train of thought.
Political, social issues.
Yeah, I don't know. It's gone.
All right. Well, let's take a musical break, and maybe you'll think about it. Do you want to tell us about the song you've selected?
Yeah. So this is Sleepy Joe's Cafe by Bruce Springsteen off of his new, I wouldn't say acoustic, but kind of quieter solo album, Western Stars. I'm a huge Springsteen fan. Along with my dad, we try to make it to a show on every tour that he does. So I'd be remiss if I didn't start my podcasting life by playing some Bruce for everyone.
All right. After a brief couple of words, and then we'll hear Sleepy Joe's Cafe, and then we'll be back with Brad Davis here on St. John Forward Radio.
Hi, everybody. It's the Mayor of Comedy, Shane Ogden, and this is 107.3 FM. Thank you so much for having me on.
Ho! Hey, folks, this is WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and you're listening to 107.3, tough guy.
There's a place out on the highway across the San Bernardino line, where the truckers and the bikers gather every night at the same time. At 7 the band comes in and locals dance the night away. It's Sleepy Joe's Cafe. I drive on down from the big town Friday when the clock strikes 5. As the red sun sets in the ocean, I start to come alive. Summer girls in the parking lot slap on their makeup and they flirt the night away. Sleepy Joe's Cafe. Joe came home at 45 and took out a GI loan on a sleepy little spot an army cook could call his own. He married me, the highway come in, and they woke up to find they were sitting on top of a pretty little gold mine. Saturday night the lights are bright as the folks pour in from town. Joe keeps the blues playing at the bar, maybe the beer's down. I come through the door and feel the work week slip away. See you out on the floor and Monday morning's a million miles away. Sleepy Joe's Cafe. Sleepy Joe's Cafe. Sleepy Joe's Cafe.
Back on St. John Forward Radio with a very professional fade out on that one. Actually, the song just faded out on its own. I didn't have to do anything. So, yeah, not a huge fan of Bruce Springsteen, but that song wasn't too bad.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a big fan of The Boss?
I am. I think a lot of people don't. I mean, everyone's heard of the Deadheads, like the Grateful Dead cult,
Yeah.
and the Fish cult and the Dave Matthews cult, but Bruce kind of has his own group of diehards. It's the dads and Brad, really.
Yeah, well, that if you're going to be on one of those teams, I think the Bruce Springsteen is one of the least embarrassing of those ones that you mentioned.
It might be the most unique.
Yeah. Yeah, like the Grateful Dead, I never really got into. I haven't really listened to much of it. My main exposure to it was I was over at Brian Godsoe's place watching The King of Comedy, Martin Scorsese movie, and his roommate was playing Grateful Dead loudly over top of the whole thing in the next room, so that was a weird soundtrack to have for that movie. Fish, I never got into them, but I've had people like loan me like stuff, and I listen to it, and I can kind of see it. I'm not super into it.
Right.
I think I would enjoy seeing the live show.
Yeah, I would like to see a Fish show.
Dave Matthews Band, indefensible though. That was one I always. I'm joking to some extent. None of these bands like I hate, but what bothered me the most about Dave Matthews Band, like when I was in high school, that was one of the bands where if somebody asked you if you like the Dave Matthews Band and you said no, they would almost be offended and demand that you justify, like, why not?
Right.
Which is weird. Are you a DMB fan?
No, I don't really get into the jam bands. I've played a few shows while working on my thesis, and that's a good way to kind of not be distracted by the music for 2 hours while they just play the same riff a bunch of times.
Yeah, and that kind of thing. I when I was in university, the local here, and when I was in Fredericton, the jam band scene was quite vibrant, and most of my friends were into that stuff. So
right.
I've seen more Grand Theft Bus shows than I care to admit. But it's a weird thing when but they play different stuff depending on the audience. I've been to a lot of bad Grand Theft Bus shows where they'll just play the same loop for like 10 minutes at a time, just because that's easy for stoned people to dance to. But I also saw I tried to miss most of it, but I caught like the last 3 songs when Grand Theft Bus was opening for the Rio Statics when I saw them in Fredericton. But that same band playing for like a rock crowd actually played good songs, and they weren't as kind of jammy, I guess. And I'm a little disappointed that I didn't see the whole set. So something like that. I know that they've got it in them,
right?
Although they'll pander to the hippie drug people if they need to.
Well, Bruce sort of does the same thing. I mean, I've seen him right in his heartland of like East Rutherford, New Jersey, the old Giant Stadium, where he does get into the deep tracks and the early stuff, although he doesn't take it into that jam territory. It's very much a complete song. And then I saw him here in Moncton, and it was very much a greatest hits show where we went through, all the Born in the USA stuff. I think there were like 5 songs from that album that he played.
Yeah.
And he kind of has the advantage of not being as in your face as some of the other bands out there. I mean, occasionally you get the Born in the USA riff exploding over the PA at a hockey game or something, but it's not Bon Jovi where you're subjected to Give Love a Bad Name and Living on a Prayer and Bad Medicine from every angle all the time.
Yeah, but I think anybody that's going to see Bon Jovi would be mad if he didn't play all of those songs.
Yes. Yeah. I've been relieved to not hear Born in the USA at a couple of the Bruce shows I've been to. I do like it, but it's a spot in the show where I'd rather hear something I haven't heard before. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Some people, especially stuff like that, I don't know, are you, I don't know how deep in the fandom you are, but Bruce Springsteen
deep. I go to
like
shows and see people I know when I'm in like New York or Philadelphia. I've run into people I've met before.
Yeah, I never really thought of him as having like the kind of cult-like following that those other bands have. But is there I don't know. I just pictured that as like everybody that's going would be mad if they didn't hear Born in the USA.
No, I'm sure some people are, but I'm always in the pit, and the pit's always more excited to hear, the one time a year he plays Trapped or something, which is an unreleased track. They'll go wild for that, and Born in the USA, not so much.
Yeah.
And he, like, Bruce's music, I mean, it's more structured than I think a jam band, but I think it appeals to people in that it's kind of this grand narrative over his career. He revisits characters from earlier songs and later albums, and you really feel like you're part of this universe that he's created, almost like a Stephen King universe or a Tolkien universe or something.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. Did you see the movie that came out with the
the Blinded by the Light, about the Indian youngster in the UK who kind of finds the boss? And I thought it started off pretty strange, and they were trying to like make some of the songs like a sing and dance movie, like Thunder Road, my favorite song of all time. Its scene in the movie was just awful, like awkward. The dialogue was bad. It was really forced, but I think the last 45 minutes or half hour of the movie, it really got better, and they should have done the whole movie in that way.
Yeah, I remember, I'm not a huge Elton John fan. Like, I like pretty much every song that I've heard. I never really got into it, though. I went to see the Rocket Man movie.
Right.
I wasn't expecting that it was gonna go like at full on like musical numbers, and it was strange. I liked it, but it was unexpected. So they do like, is it like a similar thing to that they do with
in the start? They are doing that where the characters burst into song, and two characters who weren't getting along are kind of dancing next to each other and singing the music, and it's very choreographed, and there's background dancers, and it's similar to those scenes in Rocket Man, but then they kind of stop halfway through the movie, and the movie really gets a lot better and tells a good story, regardless of Bruce's music. Yeah, it's just a good character arc.
Okay, so is your musical taste generally in that lane of kind of dad rock?
That's where it starts, but I mean, I've been to EDM festivals, and I like everything that's on the radio now, pop, and I'm starting to just kind of touch jazz just barely. Listen to some of the Miles Davis stuff that's out there, and Dave Brubeck, and
that's something like most of the jazz that I've heard I liked, but I'd never really got into it.
I've been telling people I was just getting bored of the same notes, so I wanted some new notes. So tried out some jazz.
The EDM, though, I don't know. I think there's probably some artists in pretty much every category of music that I can get behind, but I have a hard time wrapping my head around that one.
Yeah, I've gone to a couple festivals, and I don't really listen to too much of it unless I'm at a festival or getting ready to go to one.
Yeah,
and it's I don't know. You kind of need. I think people need more of that, dichotomy where you can. Get into the EDM and then slow down with Bruce's acoustic album from 1982 and appreciate the lyrics and the stories. And
well, I can see like at a music festival getting into it and like dancing and like a whole bunch of people and glow sticks and probably some ecstasy or something and getting into
not
it, but like sitting down and listening to an EDM album seems like a strange.
Yeah, I'm not going to buy any of them on vinyl or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I remember the last time I went to a music festival was the Evolve Music Festival, and they've got different stages, and they had some, I remember, I think I was tripping out on acid, and I was just sitting in a hammock listening to, like, these, they seemed like little, like, 17-year-old boys, and they were just kind of jumping around on the stage and just yelling out nonsense over, like, a weird beat, and I was just, I was interested in it as kind of, like, a detached social experiment, like what, just trying to wrap my head around like what was happening, but I couldn't get into the actual music of it.
No, the dad rock though is definitely what you'll find me listening to on most days, whether it's Bruce or Billy Joel, which is really show tunes if people look at it honestly for what it is Billy Joel does show tunes and passes it off as rock.
Yeah, I never really got into that kind of thing. My lane's more like heavier stuff or rap stuff. Not so much the combination of the two. That's where it started, though. I'm not proud of this, but Limp Bizkit was my favorite band in high school.
Yeah, I feel like I need to get a little bit in touch with my metal side because I think my gym and running playlist needs a bit of an upgrade, and there aren't many Bruce songs that qualify other than Born to Run.
Yeah,
that you can.
How old are you? I can't really get a feel for
I'm
it.
25.
Okay. Yeah, you kind of have a fate. You could be anywhere between like 25 and 45. It's hard to tell.
Excellent. Thank you.
But yeah, I never got into full-on metal until I was probably 20. Like I remember in high school, like I'd listen like anything that had any kind of screaming or growling in it at all. I was not into it. If the sad thing is about the Limp Bizkit, as much as it's neither rap nor metal, it kind of got me into both.
Yeah, okay.
Separately, like it got me used to like the screaming kind of aggressive music, and it also got me into, in a weird roundabout way, into actual hip hop. So yeah, there's you just have to find your gateway band into it. I think for me, I actually another big thing, I remember probably 2001, I was listening to this station at home and they played Walk by Pantera, and it just blew my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what it is. I'd kind of because there's a lot of flavors to to metal, and it's not all like screamy stuff either. There's different but yeah, I've broadened. It started out with like more rhythmic stuff, but I can get into a handful of like full on just like speed, like grindcore, just really fast and Cookie Monster stuff. But I don't know, the more I get into it, I can kind of I've got like a mix CD that's from a Relapse record label that I listen to in the car sometimes, and it's got like 20 something songs on it, and to like my wife May, they all sound like the same song, but she just finds it weird that like I'll be listening to it and I'll be like, skip, don't like this one. Oh, this one's a banger though, and like, to somebody else it sounds like exactly the same thing. But yeah, I think I like the big one, like Pantera and Slayer and stuff, I think when I was like right up until university, I hadn't actually heard them, and I just had in my head that it was like Cookie Monster, like growling death metal, which it's not. No. So yeah, I think
more of a relationship to classical music even than some of the classic rock stuff. I mean, they really they have to appreciate the theory when they're shredding those arpeggios and like crafting those songs. One
of my favorite bands is Opeth. They just put out an album. I don't think I've ever played them on the show because their songs are all like 10 to 12 minutes long. But they're all like classically trained, like crazy musicians, and their songs are super long, and it's very kind of orchestral. Like there's like movements to them and stuff like that. Like you can really appreciate the craft that goes into it, where the kind of really like play as fast as possible and just scream a lot. Not so much. I can get into it, but
for my metal taste, I've always leaned toward Iron Maiden. I don't know.
Yeah. I like Iron Maiden. I never got super into them though. Of those bands, I don't know if these two are competing, but in that kind of era, I lean more Judas Priest than the Iron Maiden.
Yeah, Judas Priest is good too.
Yeah, and yeah, one of the shows that was at that Mud City Festival in Moncton this past week, the Friday night show, was Ian Blurt, and I forget what his band's name is, but we listened to his album on the way up to Moncton, and it sounded a lot like kind of 70s era Judas Priest. But I was too sleepy to go to two shows in a row, so I didn't go up. But yeah, there's I don't know. There's lots of stuff. Yeah,
I got to see Rob Halford solo once at Ozfest. I went to Ozfest 10 years ago.
Cool. And
that was kind of my introduction to a lot of the Judas Priest music. I was really big on Ozzy at the time.
Yeah.
So I went to see him, and then Halford was really good as well. This was during one of Ozzy's relapses, so I kind of needed the other acts at Ozfest to save that weekend for me.
Yeah, I never saw Halford by himself. I saw the Judas Priest played in Halifax probably 5 years ago, I want to say. It was a good time, and as old as he is, he can still hit the notes.
Yeah.
He had a little shack behind the stage that he was either resting between songs or doing costume changes, probably a little of both. But no, I got into Judas Priest in my first year university at here in Joe Galbo's sociology class. We watched the documentary about there was these two kids that shot themselves, and they had a whole court trial, and they tried to blame it on Judas Priest.
Oh, okay.
And the character Arseface from Preacher was actually based on one of these kids who shot himself in the head with a shotgun and didn't die. It just messed up his face.
I think there might have been some South Park jokes about that.
Yeah. But I remember like they played a lot of Judas Priest in the background, and I was like, I like this. And I went into it, and like I listened to all their albums after that, and it was just something weird about like the court cases, and it's I forget what the documentary is called. I Google it. Everybody watch it. Well, I think it's on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, here we are years later, and your face is intact. So I guess Judas Priest can't be that bad.
Well, it's just a weird thing. Like, it's funny watching the court case, and they'd have a day where, like, the prosecutors would like, so do you have backwards messages on your record? And they're like, yeah. And like they cut to like behind the scenes in the prosecution, like, yes, we got them to admit it, we nailed them. And then it cuts to the band, like, and so why would we want to kill our fans? They're the ones buying the record.
Right, exactly.
It's just ridiculous. And the good thing that came out of that was it kind of set a precedent, and that's why they bands aren't really getting sued anymore. They
Right.
didn't, like, they talked about, like, oh, Marilyn Manson was the cause of Columbine back in the day, but that's not something that ever went to court because it's kind of been settled. But I think it was just this kid's mom was really nutso and wanted to blame something other than her poor parenting on
Right.
her. And you could tell this poor kid that survived a shotgun to the mouth. He was just kind of going along with it, but you could tell, like, whenever he was talking about the band, he just had this weird, like, glimmer in his eye.
Yeah.
He was talking about them like this is the best thing
Right.
in his life, and it was the only thing that made him feel happy at all. And then he would kind of shake out of it and then be like, yeah, I tried to, because these evil metal lyrics, like Mom says. But yeah, I don't know. That's weird. That's how I got into Judas Priest. And anyway, we're coming up on the end of the show. We've got a couple of minutes left. Do you got anything coming up that you want to plug, or did you remember what your thought was that we?
No, that thought is long gone. I don't have anything in St. John scheduled right now for October. I think I kind of lucked out last month and got on a lot of the shows. But I am on this Wednesday, October 9th, in Fredericton at the Abbey.
Okay.
Have
you done that one before?
I've done the Abbey once before. And I'm on the Abbey again on the 23rd of October, which is also a Wednesday.
Yeah, I need to get back up there. I haven't done that one in a while. That one's got a reputation amongst some of the local St. John boys that are afraid that it's been taken over by the asymmetrical haircuts.
Right.
But I don't know. I've enjoyed myself. I think I've done it 3 times and did well.
I don't think my material so far is really...
No.
There's too much to contend with in there. It's just goofiness.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
That might change. I don't know where I'm going to end up. But
some sets of mine that I probably wouldn't do there, but I'm not. I've got enough that I also like that I think would go over well. So I don't feel like I'm sacrificing something to not talk about my penis for 10 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't have much on the go. No Jokes Bard's coming up on the 19th. Brad may or may not be on that. I haven't set the lineup. I believe you were one of the requesters. I'm still waiting.
There was a lot of requests on that one, I think, and I've been on recently, so make your decision.
We'll see. I'll see what the cuts need to be, but people cancel every time, so
yes,
there's a good chance.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm gonna be at Chuckles opening for what's his name, Rob Ross, I believe his name is. That's gonna be on the November 15th and 16th, and like I said, October 19th. No Jokes Bard at McGill's. And I should make more of an effort to do other stuff. I've taken my September off after the Fringe Festival to cool down a bit, but I need to get back into it. So, anybody that wants me on their show, hit me up. Thank you for joining us, and I'll be back next Monday at 9:00.